Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Roger, for letting me speak. My name is Michael Clark. I am a retired scientist, physicist by profession. So I have an inherent interest in energy systems, and in particularly alternative energy systems, which have been hidden from us deliberately. They've had these kind of units for the last 80 years. They choose to keep them, and when I say they, I'm talking about this New World Order. They've chosen to keep them secret, they've chosen to keep them to themselves, and they have deliberately kept us out of the picture, which falls in line with exactly what their plans are. Keep us in poverty. Okay, so the best example I can give of the current state of our scientific community is to quote Cancer Research UK. Most of you, if not all of you, have heard of it. It is an organisation that was established on the 4th of July 1902. And I will read from their website. Cancer Research Fund was established on the 4th of July 1902 by doctors and surgeons concerned by the suffering caused by cancer. It was the UK's first specialist cancer research charity. Before this, there were no independent institutions in the UK that were wholly devoted to investigating the cause and treatment of cancer. That was 110 years ago. Do we have a cure for cancer? No, we don't. And why don't we have a cure for cancer? Because they have no interest in it, not the remotest interest in finding a cure, because it goes against their monetary schemes. Pharmaceuticals are happy to take our money from all the charities that we give to. I don't give to them anymore because it's a waste. That money goes into plush offices, plush laboratories, salaries, keeping the lifestyle of the scientists that are working within that community. But they do not come up with a cure, and yet there are cures out there, without a shadow of a doubt. They come up with drug alternatives so that the pharmaceuticals can continue making the billions upon billions of profits that they do every year. So that's the state of our scientific community. It stretches into all areas: chemistry, biology, physics, in all its various forms. We have a community that is comprised of people that have no interest in serving the better good of humanity. They are interested in ring-fencing themselves. They are interested in maintaining their salaries and the lifestyles that they've managed to get from this kind of work. As an example of that, we have the increase, the 10% increase in the last 30 years of retractions of papers from scientific magazines and scientific journals. Now, papers submitted for publication are the lifeline of the scientific community. If you don't publish, you don't get grants and you don't get work, so you don't get a salary. So it's important to publish papers. The problem is, the increase in retractions has highlighted the fact that the papers that are being submitted are untrue. They're plagiarized, they downright lie. And they've been caught doing so. One particular doctor, a Japanese fellow, has had 11 papers retracted in the last 2 years because they're just untrue. And he submitted them because he wanted to maintain his salary levels and he wanted to maintain his way of life. So, that's the state of science. Cannot be trusted. BCG has given me the opportunity to run the energy division, which I gratefully accept because I think it's a job worth doing. To do that, we have to adopt policies that are not like the rest of science. We have to do things truthfully. It has to be completely transparent. It has to be democratic. One of the keystones of BCG is the fact that we're all entitled to know what's going on all of the time, whether it's good or bad. If we fail, you should know that we fail. If we succeed, you should know that we succeed. So that's the kind of policies that I want to bring to the energy division of BCG. Now, a person better qualified than me to speak about new energy devices and how they were suppressed is Andrew Johnson, who I will introduce in a moment. But I will say this final thing. We are currently working on fuel devices that are classed as over unity. In other words, more energy out than in. And they've been around a long time. Tesla demonstrated quite clearly that these devices were quite possible. And we're working on that right now as part of the BCG program. We should have something by 2015 that will allow every individual that's part of the BCG or lawful bank to install a unit into their homes and derive free electricity. You will never have to be on the grid. Thank you. Thank you. We haven't done it yet, but we hopefully will do it. Everything's looking very, very positive at the moment. All the results we've had so far have been positive, and I'll keep all members of BCG through Roger and his newsletter up to date on what's going on. Now, the key element of having a device like that, whether it's going to be magnetic or a water fuel cell, which are some of the things we're working on, the key element of having a device like that is that we can offer it to non-members as an incentive to join Lawful Bank and British Constitution Group. Who in their right mind is going to turn down a unit that's going to give them free electricity? Nobody. So what a great carrot to swell the membership. Come and join us. We'll make sure you get one of these things. You will never have to pay electricity again. You can come off the grid. We don't want to give it back to them because we don't want anything to do with them, to be perfectly honest. But it's a great incentive, and it's a good way of swelling our numbers. Right, I'm going to hand over to Andrew. Andrew will take you through, not a conspiracy theory, because it's actually true. He's got a lot of evidence that clearly points to the fact that all these technologies have been around for a long time, and they have been suppressed. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Andrew. Cheers, mate. Oh, yeah. Cheers.
Okay. Right, hello everyone. I apologise if this gets a bit crackly or whatever while I'm putting it on. Hopefully that works. Can everyone hear? Yeah? Okay. I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me to speak at this event. It's a very large audience. I'm not used to audiences of this size, but I'll do my best. And thanks to Dr. Mike Clark for his information there. What I decided to do is, it's only going to be a short time I've got today. I've recently written an article about the topics that Mike was referring to. So I'm just basically going to read through that. It's on my website. People in this room might know my website, or some people, checktheevidence.com. Just very briefly before I read this out, I've got some information with me today, and I'll be hanging around probably for some of today. I'm not sure how long, because I've come with somebody that might have to get back. So, you can come and see me and quiz me further on these things. But I've written this piece recently because we were invited to speak at a conference in Hilversum in Holland, and I've called this piece, Do We Have the Energy to Change the World? Most people realise that our ability to access energy sources safely, responsibly and cheaply is fundamental to our technological progress as a society. Outside of events like this, i.e. the BCG conference, a rather limited mindset prevails. Even within groups like this, it is assumed that energy supplies are limited by certain factors, primarily the availability of fuel, or where energy is said to be renewable, then it is limited by environmental factors such as the amount of solar radiation, the amount of wind, water flow, and so on. In my own lifetime, I have seen the various factors played off against each other, all set in what I call a paradigm of scarcity. A great many doom-laden forecasts have suggested that our technological progress will be arrested quite abruptly. In the period of about 2003 to 2005, for example, it again became fashionable to talk about peak oil, but talk of this seems to have faded out over the last few years. The issues of energy and environment are now fully woven together in the public mindset because it has been programmed into people that the only way to get the majority of our energy is, essentially, by destroying the environment in some way. This then causes the existence of an environmental movement which at one time was just vocal in criticising the way energy is derived from fuel-based sources. Now, however, it sets government policy in many countries and forces certain controls to be placed on the energy usage. However, behind this green mask lies a darker agenda, one of control of our freedom. Without a complete view of the energy picture, the control agenda appears sensible and benign. But when more obscure histories from the last 100 years or so are studied in depth, an insidious cover-up can be observed. Many people have discussed aspects of this cover-up, but only a very small number of people, including myself, have connected this cover-up to what has become known as the war on terror. Indeed, others have appropriately reused this cliché to describe what we are involved in as a war on terror, as in T-E-R-R-A, a war on the earth, i.e. that some group somewhere has co-opted us into helping us to destroy our own environment. In a presentation in Holland that I did, I tried to illustrate clearly how this energy cover-up is more far-reaching than most will discuss or acknowledge. And I've got copies of that presentation on DVDs here, and it's also online on my website. In the 6 years, arguably longer, since Dr. Judy Wood first connected the evidence seen in the aftermath of the events of 9/11 to energy phenomena, the number of people openly discussing this evidence is small, i.e. that 9/11 is about energy. Very few people talking about that. The number of people wishing to cover up this knowledge, which is now obvious, is much larger than I would have expected. And it seems that a comprehensive programme has been underway for some time, which seemingly rolls out new personnel to help manage the cover-up, i.e. helps manage the cover-up of what happened on 9/11. And I've written a whole book about this. In 2003, I discovered the Disclosure Project, and it confirmed two things for me at that time. Firstly, the UFO cover-up is real, and secondly, that there was a clear link between the UFO phenomenon and so-called free energy. The evidence indicates some groups appear to have access to advanced propulsion technology, which uses an unconventional energy source. Nick Cook's book, The Hunt for Zero Point, which was published in the year 2000, discusses the links between free energy and anti-gravity through the work of people like Thomas Townsend Brown. In 2006, I became familiar with Dr. Judy Wood's investigation into the destruction of the World Trade Center on 9/11, and this proved, and it's proof, not a theory, that some type of energy weapon was used to destroy most of the World Trade Center complex on 9/11. In late 2007 and early 2008, more information was discovered showing the connection between the effects seen in the World Trade Center evidence and the work of Canadian experimental researcher John Hutchison. This resulted in ongoing character attacks against John Hutchison, Dr. Judy Wood, and to a lesser extent myself. Weeks later, Dr. Wood began to document the peculiarly synchronous presence of the movement of Hurricane Erin near New York City with the events of 9/11. And if anyone in this room not familiar with that, I suggest you study this because it's of huge importance. So now climate data were linked to the energy effects seen on 9/11, primarily at the World Trade Center. At this point, the reason for the implementation of a certain physicist called Stephen E. Jones as a figurehead in the 9/11 research community had already become clear. However, with certain effects, such as the transmutation of elements, being observed both in John Hutchison's research and what Jones called cold fusion, more correctly called chemically assisted nuclear reactions or low-energy nuclear reactions, it became even clearer the cover-up needed to be carefully managed, the 9/11 cover-up. So here we are, almost 5 years after all those links between 9/11 and energy, that is, were all clearly established. And who is talking about them? I wonder if President Dwight Eisenhower tried to warn people about the likelihood of something like 9/11 being perpetrated. Grant Cameron's archival research at presidentialufo.com shows that it is extremely likely that Ike was briefed on the UFO issue at a high level. The USA's secrecy apparatus was well established by the time Eisenhower left office in 1961, And so perhaps it was his fears about this which caused him to state, "The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes." Eisenhower also said it in that same speech. Yet, in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific technological elite. So who were the members of this scientific technological elite that he referred to? Perhaps some of them worked for companies called Applied Research Associates and Science Applications International Corporation, two companies that were defendants in Judy Wood's Ketam science fraud case in 2007. And they were also involved in writing the NIST World Trade Center reports. I have argued and pointed out that one of the main reasons that we do not have free energy technology in general use is because such technology has already been weaponized. However, few people look at the evidence and even fewer will talk about it. For example, the Disclosure Project head, Dr. Stephen Greer, who I already referred to, the Disclosure Project, who, as described earlier, he was instrumental in linking together the energy cover-up and the UFO cover-up. He will not speak or write about 9/11 in any meaningful way. He contends that Al-Qaeda did it. Further, his own free energy initiative, Stephen Greer's that is, called Seize Power, Aero 2012 and Project Orion, when scrutinised carefully, do not appear to do what they say on the tin. I found it very interesting to hear what Bruce De Palma said, an inventor of another free energy device called the N machine, which is based on Faraday's homopolar generator. He said this to say about free energy and New Age movements before his death in 1997. Bruce De Palma said, "The CIA operates through various innocent-looking fronts to find out what people are thinking and what they are inventing. Now, what's more innocent than a benign institute founded on transcendental principles to help New Age inventors bring free energy to the world?" In this case, he seems to be referring to the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, due to his experiences with the sixth man not to walk on the moon, Edgar Mitchell. So, if we want widespread use of free energy, we must first realise the obstacles in our way. Some of these obstacles can only be discovered by careful analysis and documentation. As well as solving engineering problems, it must be realised there is some system or program in operation which is influencing people in subtle and not so subtle ways. Can this system be circumvented? So do we have the energy to change the world? Yes, we do. And that has been demonstrated thousands of times in the last 100 years. But mainstream science won't tell you that. It was most clearly demonstrated, however, in the destruction of the World Trade Center on 9/11. So, do we have the energy to make sure that everyone in the world knows this? At this point, it's up to you and me to make sure the job gets done. Thank you for listening.